Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to The Break. I am joined here with Rob 10K of Rob's 10K Friends. For those of you who know, it's been an amazing journey so far. For those of you who don't know, why don't you give us a little bit of an intro on the journey you're on right now?
Sure. So my name is Rob Lawless. I'm from the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I'm currently spending 1 hour one-on-one with 10,000 different people to learn about their lives and see what comes of opening doors for no particular reason.
Yeah. And when did that start?
So I started in November of 2015. The idea...
So it's been years already.
Yeah, it's been 3.5 years since I started. So the first person I met November 11th of 2015. And then over the next 8 months, I was meeting people alongside my full-time tech sales job.
Mm-hmm.
And then in July of 2016, that company was bought out, so I was laid off. So I decided to take this full-time.
Yeah.
So,
Opportunity struck and you took it.
Yeah, it was just something I was really enjoying, and I always thought it was a cool enough concept where if I did it, it would grow, and then I could use that audience to leverage partnerships. And actually, it's funny that we're in a WeWork right now because I did a trial partnership with them, and I'm just waiting on a contract for a 3-month partnership with them. And once I sign that, we'll move forward with that, and they'll be like one of the bigger brands who has paid attention to me and listened and actually decided to work with me.
So how did you just reach out to them cold? Hey guys, this is what I'm doing, or did they hear about, your journeys?
Yeah, so I reached out to them, and through the years of doing the project, I've built up a couple of assets that I send out to brands. So one of them is I did a phone interview with Ryan Seacrest for his national radio show. Yeah, that was last July. And I have that clip, so I'll always send that out to people and be like, if Ryan Seacrest thinks I'm cool, you should think I'm cool too.
Yeah.
And last October, I got hit up by a production company that makes videos for Upworthy. They're like a positive online news source.
Yep.
And about 4 hours later, I got hit up by this company, 60 Second Docs, who they do 1-minute videos on interesting stories from around the world. And unfortunately, both of those opportunities fell through, so the videos were never made. But I keep that direct message from 60 Second Docs, and I'll send that out to brands because in it, they're like, hey, we love what you're doing. We came across your project on Reddit. We'd love to make a video on it. Our videos usually get like 8 million views. Shoot us an email if you're interested. So
yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, for me, it's nice to know that those companies are paying attention to me. Although the video hasn't hit yet, they're starting to...
Yeah, there's still a buzz.
To look at the project. And for me, it's validation that someday there will be a video like that. And when that video does come, I want brands, or to be able to say, these are the brands that helped me back before anyone knew about it.
Exactly, yeah. So I follow it through Instagram.
Sure.
But you just said Reddit. So how many different platforms are you broadcasting this on?
That's a good question. So Instagram is the main platform that I broadcast it on. I also have a Facebook page and a Twitter page as well. The handle for all of them is at Robs10kfriends. And for listeners, I take a picture with each person that I meet, and I post a little bit about what I've learned from their life story. Reddit came up because I did an AMA on Reddit just about the project.
Oh, good idea, yeah.
And also, earlier this year, I had written an article, How to Meet 12 New People in 2019. And I put it out on the social skills subreddit, and it caught a little bit of traction there just for people looking to make new connections and my advice for what I've learned from 3.5 years of doing it.
Yeah. You might be the pro at that right now.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see.
So when you sit down with somebody, do you record the conversation, or do you have like a photographic memory? You just remember everything they say, or are you taking notes? Like, what's that process like?
Sure. So it's funny, when I meet with people, I'm more so there to just chill and hang out and enjoy the conversation. But everything that I write is from memory.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of people always say, oh, it's so detailed what you write about people, and it's such a long little paragraph.
Yeah.
But I think that comes from practice of doing it. So if you look back at the first caption that I ever wrote, it's, hey, this is me and Jim Brady, the CEO of BillyPen.com.
Right.
We talked about this, this, and this. Have a great day, Jim.
And now it's like almost an essay of somebody's life.
Right.
Which is amazing, because now the one from today from Burbank, I read Sarah, right?
Yes.
I feel like I know so much about her just from one post, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, and especially with her, like she shared some pretty, intimate details about her life. Are people, or I guess it might be a spectrum, but when you speak to somebody, are they just like ready to gush out information, or does it take a while to kind of warm up?
It's definitely a spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is created by the expectations that people build up in their mind before meeting with me.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so you would know better than I would of what to expect
I guess so,
going
right?
into it. But yeah, because I had done an interview with a radio station in Philly early on, and the girl asked, how do you get people to open up to you so easily, or what questions do you ask them? And I thought about it, and I don't think it's the questions that I ask or me wanting to get any information out of them. I think it's just them seeing other people have shared their stories, and then they feel permission to share their own.
That's true.
And I think a lot of people just don't have listening ears in their lives that often. And so when they get to me, who's willing to sit there and listen to them for an hour, it's almost like their cup is overflowing and they were just waiting for someone to spill it out to.
Oh, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I know now the popularity has obviously grown, but when somebody reaches out to you, how do you choose?
It's just first come, first serve.
Okay, so it is fair.
Yeah, and also basically just on location.
Right.
So I was telling you in the elevator last week, I did a Facebook video with this dude, Drew Binsky, who travels the world and makes like daily videos. And he has a large international audience. So when he posted that video to Facebook, I started getting messages from people from Kenya, from Pakistan, from India. So all over the world. And that's what I was doing all today, was messaging all of them back like, hey, I'd love to meet you when I can afford to travel.
Right.
And stay put in your area because I want to see the world and I want to meet people of different cultures.
Yeah, in their own environment.
Yeah.
Kind of like at their local coffee shop or something, yeah.
Right, yeah, I want to get that local experience. And yeah, so for here in LA or Philly, it's just a matter of can I get to that person, and just trying to schedule everything logistically to make it work.
Right. So we're both from the East Coast. Where have you been so far in the world? Because it's been years now.
For purposes of the project, so I have met, I think you might be the 2630th person.
Whoa.
Yes, that I've met. So the breakdown is probably like 1,800 in the Philly area, maybe like 100 or so in New York City, and then whatever is left over, 700 or whatever in LA. But each time that I've come to LA, so this is my third stint in LA, I've driven here and I've driven back to Philly. So yeah, the project has existed now at this point in, I guess you should say 18 different cities across the country.
Yeah.
So I was just, as I was telling you, in Maui, Hawaii.
Yep.
So
not bad.
couple new locations added to the list, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, every time I drive across the country, I try to pick a different route to hit new places. And today I was thinking about what route I'm going to take back to Philly, because next Saturday I'll be leaving to drive across the country again. And yeah, it's just I might try to hit places I've never seen before just to see what those cities look like.
Yeah.
And like, why not? Because it's just...
Oh, there's a bunch in between.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So when you drive, are you by yourself?
For 4 of the 5 trips I've done so far, I've been by myself.
Wow. And you don't go crazy?
No, I always tell people I have a really good relationship with myself. So when I'm in the car, I'm able to just sit with my thoughts or listen to a podcast or listen to music. But it is interesting. I remember the very first time that I came to LA, and I think you'll be able to relate to this. I always feel like whenever someone's doing something of their own, the whole journey is just constant cycles of confidence and doubt. And it's just a matter of...
That's very true.
how long you're in confidence or how long you're in doubt. And so for me, it's typically like I'll have a few weeks of feeling really good about something, and then I'll have a week of not feeling so good about it.
Yeah.
And then it'll come back around. When I was driving across the country the first time, 1 hour I'd be like, oh, this is the best project in the world. Everyone's going to know about this. It's going to be so impactful. The next hour I'd be like, what am I doing with my life? This is like, it's not going to work. I'm going to run out of money. Why am I going to LA?
Right.
Yeah.
So when those things happen, do you just rely on yourself to get you out of that funk, or do you have people to rely on? Do you call friends to kind of, get you back on your pep in your step? I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about.
I get what you're saying. I think for me, it's just, I understand now that it is cyclical, and that if I'm feeling down, it's always going to come back around to me feeling good. And when I'm feeling good, to just appreciate that time. And I think
that's really good advice.
Yeah, the through line is just action. So for me, the way I see my project is I try to meet 4 people every day.
Oh, okay.
During the weekdays, and then on the weekends, 1 or 2 here and there. But I know, like, I don't know how this project's going to work out or how it's going to end up.
That's great, though.
Yeah.
You don't want to know.
Right.
Half the time, the best thing about taking that leap, they call it, is not knowing where you're going to end up.
Right.
Because for us, for our company, yeah, we have our idea of where we're going to get to, but I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Exactly.
So I can definitely relate to that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I know as long as I'm meeting 4 people a day, that I'm going to progress towards the goal, and that whatever needs to come together is going to come together.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So, okay, let's rewind back a little bit, though. When you were working your job, did you have any kind of entrepreneurial thoughts, or did you ever want to leave before, I guess, the idea to start this journey
Started? Yeah.
started? Yeah.
So I majored in finance at Penn State,
Okay.
and I minored in accounting and entrepreneurship. Finance was always the safe route. Entrepreneurship was always the dream.
Right.
And I took the safe route out of school. Like, I started dating this girl 3 weeks before school let out. I got a job with Deloitte Consulting that paid really well. And I jumped into that life. And probably after a month, honestly, at Deloitte, I was like, oh, I don't like this.
That didn't take long at all.
No.
For me, it was like 3 years.
Okay. Yeah.
But then I was going crazy.
Right. And I also, the thing is, once I recognized that I didn't enjoy it, I didn't do anything about it because I was like, oh, well, this is your career and this is work. And you're not supposed to enjoy work. Work is something that allows you to enjoy your life.
Which is not true.
Which is not true. And so I graduated May of 2013 from Penn State. January of 2014 is when I first wrote down the idea for this project in my iPhone notes.
What sparked it? I think this would be awesome to do.
I
And
just
you just write it down.
I just have always been a people person. I had a ton of friends at Penn State just because I was involved in a lot of clubs and activities.
Yeah.
And initially, the idea was to meet 10,000 people in 1 year for 10 minutes at a time. And I just thought that would catch fire in some way or another. Mm-hmm. And now I'm really proud that I didn't do that because I think it would have caught fire in terms of a BuzzFeed article.
Yeah.
And then it would have died. And I would have had nothing to go off of after that. But over time, my mindset switched from wanting to become an overnight success to wanting to do something that was going to take a really long time. It was very tedious, but that I enjoyed all the way through. And that's when I kind of flipped it on its head and was like, why don't I meet each person for 1 hour at a time? That way I can get to know them beyond the surface. I'm building a foundation that if I see them on the street later, I'll be able to run into them and know about their life.
Yeah.
And it becomes this 10-year journey that who knows where it will go, where it will lead me.
That's amazing. So some of these people that you've met with, do you ever hear back from them, or do you reach back out if you're in the area again?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I see people all the time. I mean, me doing this podcast is a good example. If Alex were here right now.
That's true. So disclaimer, Rob actually met with Alex, I guess, a couple months ago. I forget the exact date.
Right.
I don't know what number he is, but that's how we found out about you. And yeah, we had to come and have you on so we could, talk a little bit more in depth about it, because I wanted to know everything about it, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it happens all the time. And there is a spectrum to that as well. So there's definitely people that I've met before and I haven't seen since then. Mm-hmm. There are people that I meet and I run into just around town. And there are people who I've met who've become friends of mine. Yeah. One of the guys that I met in Long Beach, he's Filipino, and when we met, he said, in our culture, it's like you provide a meal for someone. So he was like, I want to meet up again. I'll take you out to lunch or whatever. And so we did. We went out to lunch a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me that he was also going to be in Maui at the same time I was there for a friend's wedding. And we were texting back and forth when I was in Maui to meet up, but unfortunately we couldn't make it happen. He was on the west side of the island. I was kind of in the middle of the island.
Right.
And I didn't have the ability to just Uber around everywhere. But totally was anticipating meeting up with him in Maui if it had worked.
Right.
And yeah, I keep in touch with people all the time, but I'm just passive about it. I let it fall where it falls.
Mm-hmm. So what I kind of want to touch on too, because being an entrepreneur, doing your own thing, a lot of people are on board with you. They're rooting for you, but then there's others. Sometimes it's people's parents or best friends or something that are like, "Bro, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. This is just go back to work," or something like that. Did you encounter any of that, or are you battling through it now? Because we get our fair share all the time. But as you go on through, like you said, just person after person, you look back on the success you've made. That's kind of the talking point for us anyway. Mm-hmm. Is it like similar for you?
Yeah, I think there's struggles with that. I'm really lucky to have really supportive friends. So just as an example, I've lived in Long Beach for a year and 2 months now in total, split over 3 trips.
That's not bad.
With my college roommate in the extra bedroom of his apartment, he has not charged me a dime in rent the entire time I've lived with him. And I'm about to go back to Philly to move back in with my parents for 2 months. Mm-hmm. They have not charged me a dime in rent in the time that I've moved back in with them, which this will be the 3rd time I'm doing so.
Right.
And in mid-August, I'm moving up to New York City to move in with a friend and his wife. And they were like, we'll charge you $1 a day in rent. So I just have really good people around me. But that said, when I took this full time, so I'm the youngest of 3. I'm 28. My brother's 30. My sister's 34. When I took this full time, my brother was, from the beginning, on board with it, mm-hmm. supportive of it. And it, like, if you have to remember, I was laid off from my job. And so it kind of seemed like, oh, Rob was laid off. Like, he's not good enough to work at that job. And now he's not going back to work. He's living in this fantasy land doing this project.
Right.
And so there were nights at the dinner table, because I was living in Philly at the time, but I'd go home to have dinner with my parents, and my sister would come home as well, where the 3 of them would just sit me down and they would like have stern faces and be like, you need to go back to work. I don't know what you think you're doing,
right,
type thing. Eventually my sister came around, but yeah, my parents, I still think they struggle with the idea of what I'm doing. And it's not that they don't like me, it's that they, with their experiences through life, think that I'm screwing up my future.
Right.
My dad worked for Verizon for 35 years.
But that's not the case anymore.
Right.
People don't do that. Like, when somebody has a really good job, I feel bad for them, typically. Because I feel like everybody could be doing something that they actually want to do nowadays. There's so many different digital outlets for something, or, the barriers of entry for a lot of different industries are dropped. And true. Especially with this, like, brand deals coming up, or, the virality that this is going to stir, you could be setting yourself up the best way ever.
Yeah, and that's what I believe I'm doing.
Right.
But, yeah, and I think I think the issue with that whole notion is that other people will project their insecurities onto you. And so my parents are worried that I'm screwing up my future, when in reality, I see it as, okay, I have the validation of doing the Ryan Seacrest show. I have the validation of companies like WeWork listening to me. I have the validation of people from halfway across the world reaching out to me to meet. So for me, those are all positive signs that I'm on the right track.
Yeah, you're doing something right.
Yeah, and so it's just a matter of patience. And I think it just feels like I'm walking up a mountain and I'm telling them the view is really great when you get to the top, but they're nervous about going up the mountain.
Yes.
They haven't traveled that path before.
Right.
So
no, it is, I guess, intimidating for somebody that's never done it before. I know for us, for Alex and I, when we quit our full-time jobs, moved out to Los Angeles, traveled around Europe for a while to try and get things situated, a lot of people just don't understand it, or, in their wildest dreams, they would want to do the same thing. But then when somebody actually does it, I don't know. For me, I think it makes it more attainable for others, because, okay, he did it. Now why can't I do it?
Right. So,
I don't know.
Yeah, I do think we live in an age of opportunity, especially with the platforms that we have. Like, in my case, without Instagram, I don't know how I'd be able to do this, because I'm able to just share this interesting thing that I'm working on with people, and they're attracted to that.
Right.
And that just builds the audience, which builds the brand partnerships. And I always believe that, like, you could be into succulents and post about a succulent 3 times a day on Instagram, build up a profile of people who like the pictures you're taking of succulents, and then it's like, here, this is plant food or whatever, or soil. And
got him.
Yeah, there's always a way to do it.
Yeah. So you have to find your niche, I think. So if you weren't laid off, do you think you would have gotten out of there? Would it have taken some time?
I think it would have taken a little bit more time. So I was laid off July of 20.
Because sometimes that's the best thing. It's like,
oh yeah, it was a blessing.
Being forced into something is sometimes way easier than,
Yeah. So for background, for my company that I was working at, it was called RJ Metrics. It was a data analytics startup. And I joined them right after they raised their Series B of $16.5 million in funding. And we grew, like, I was the 5th guy on their outbound sales team. We grew to almost 20 people within a year on that team specifically. Yeah. And in February of 2016, they laid off 20% of the company. My team went from 20 back down to 5. I was one of the 5 that they kept. But at that time, I remember when the CEO was telling everyone that there were going to be layoffs and it was going to affect a lot of people in our room, my mind immediately went to, okay, cool, I'm going to do this project full time. And I had only met probably 20 people at that point.
Right.
And
but that did it make you a lot more comfortable with that fact?
Yeah, I've always just been confident in the project.
That definitely helps.
And that's kind of a thing about my personality is I make really big life decisions career-wise on a whim. So me going from Deloitte to take a pay cut to go to this startup, and Deloitte was going to pay for me to get my MBA. Like, that was the path if I wanted security. To leave Deloitte and go to this startup, I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm going to do this.
Right.
And then I did it. And then when I was laid off and I was like, all right, I think I'm going to jump into this.
Yeah.
I, at that time, said I'd do it for 2 to 3 months full time and then reevaluate. And then it just never stopped. But yeah, I think because I remember talking to my older brother in April through GChat of that year saying, I think I need to take this full time. I was like, if I have 50 people by the time June comes around, I think I want to jump into this full time.
Yeah.
And he said, you can't do this full time. You need a way to support yourself. And sure enough, I had met 100 people by the time June came around. Yeah. And I didn't have a choice. I was laid off. So
sorry. Yeah. Got to do it now.
Yeah. But it was like a freeing feeling of me being able to then choose what I wanted to do with my future.
Right. Yeah. That's a totally different seat to sit in. I know when I was working corporate life, you're not in control of your time or what you do throughout the day. And when you get back, you're pretty much burnt out to do anything anyway. Why do you want to do that? You don't need to. You know, if you have some kind of passion or something, you know, I know they say it in all kinds of stupid inspirational things, you know, find what drives you and do that. But actually do it, though, because it does work and it does make sense. Sometimes people need a little bit more guidance, but that's what YouTube is for. Yeah. You know, I think you can jump into any kind of podcast or blog or you know, even books or something to kind of get some steps to take. Right. Yeah, I'm just having flashbacks now of being at the office and coming to terms with the fact that, yeah, I'm leaving the East Coast and coming out here. Sure. And wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think one observation I have from my path, and even talking to Alex about his, so there's these 3 guys from Penn State. They started this tech company called Weebly, and they just sold like last year, 2 years ago, for $350 million or something like that. Yeah, so they did all right. And they would always talk about, you know, working on your projects in your free time. Like, they were students when they started that, so they'd go to class, and then in their free time, they were passionate about working on that company. And for me, I was working full-time at the tech sales company, but then when I got home, I was still excited to go out and meet a person or to meet them on the weekends. And I think before I had found what I was passionate about, my idea of entrepreneurship was that you had to feel the struggle of working on it afterwards. But for me, it didn't feel like a struggle to meet people, right? Because it was what I wanted to do with my time.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and for Alex to do banking and then go and work on Elude afterwards, it's like you enjoy that time you're putting towards your thing.
It doesn't feel like work.
You're right.
You know, that kind of phrase. Yeah, it is wild. I'm having way too many flashbacks right now. I'm sorry.
No,
because I think like we relate pretty well on the same thing of just making a decision and sticking to it. You know, that kind of determination has to pull you through, especially in your case, you know, setting the goal 4 people a day. And then if you don't hit that, have you ever not hit that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're the second person I'm meeting today.
Oh, then we got to get out of here.
Yeah. So that's just an internal goal that I made up for myself. When I was in Philly, so after I was laid off, I had just renewed my lease in Philly. So I spent a whole year in Philly meeting people full time. And at that time I had a bike and I was in the city and it was more manageable than LA.
Right.
So I was meeting 5 people a day.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But out here, it's like I have an hour commute up to wherever I'm going. I have an hour commute home. And so 4 is more manageable. But yeah, it's when I switch coasts, I always lose momentum. So when I go back to Philly, I'm sure I'll have like 2 people a day for the first couple of weeks until people realize I'm back in the area.
Right.
But yeah, and that's the thing with this project that I enjoy is it's kind of open-ended. Like I don't have to finish it in 10 years. I don't have to finish it in 12 years.
It evolves as it wants to, yeah.
Right. And also the way I think about it, because every time I tell people it's going to take 10 more years, which is now what I think it will take, they're always so surprised and think it's such a daunting number. But in my mind, it's like, I don't need to worry about how long it's going to take to finish it because I enjoy doing it. And this is what I'd be doing with my time if I had $1 million.
Right.
For me, it's a race to sustainability. Like that's what I'm worried about. Once I get to that point, I can just kick back and enjoy the ride.
Yeah. But it sounds like it's getting to that point pretty soon.
I hope so.
Especially with international people. So do you have plans to go overseas anytime soon?
As soon as possible.
Yeah. So you have a passport, everything's good?
I have a passport, yeah, and the same, so I got to Maui because I met a flight attendant who works for Southwest Air for my project, and as we were leaving, he said, hey man, wherever Southwest flies, you have my buddy pass.
That's amazing.
So just let me know. And I was like, I am not going to leave that offer on the table. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to fly to Hawaii while I'm on the West Coast. And they also fly to Belize, Jamaica, and Costa Rica, so I'm thinking maybe some point this summer, some point in the future, maybe in the winter months, fly down there and check that out, see what that's all about. Or I'm just going to book a flight on my own. One of my 2019 goals is to get abroad. So before the end of this year, I will be abroad somewhere.
Yeah. And I think by that point, the virality will have sparked. So all you have to do is post, hey, I'm going to be over here. Your inbox is going to be full.
Yeah, I think that it'll be interesting when it gets to that point.
Yeah.
And I think that will help me move forward at a faster rate, or not move forward at a faster rate, but decrease the amount of times that I lose momentum, because hopefully someday I will just be able to pop into London and be like, hey, what's up? I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'll have a full schedule.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And a ton of people that just want to hang out.
Yeah.
Isn't that everybody's dream? That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so lax about it.
Yeah.
Why I don't see it. A lot of people mistakenly think that I'm interviewing people because I write about them.
Okay.
But for me, I'm always like, no, I just want to hang out with you like a friend. Don't worry. I'll remember your life and I'll post about it.
Right.
But when we're together, I just want to chill.
Are you thinking of putting all the, I guess, the little snippets that you've done and make a book or something like that? Or, because at this point, it's, like you said, over 2,000, almost 3,000.
Sure. I think, so there's Humans of New York.
Right. That's what it came to mind, yeah.
He did a coffee table book. I think that's great for his project. I don't think it works for mine because the way that I write, like I'll tag Instagram accounts, and that gives a lot of context. People will hit that account and it will explain things that I didn't just because I tagged them.
Right.
For me, I'm more interested in compiling everything into a book, like this book called A Curious Mind, written by the Hollywood producer Brian Grazer. And it's basically just his life story of how he became a big Hollywood producer, supported by the stories of people he's met along the way. So every 2 weeks, he does these curiosity conversations where he'll sit with someone for like 2 hours outside of the film industry, just talking and learning about their life. And I think it would be interesting to compile how I met 10,000 people and did this project, supported by like the stories of people who inspired me along the way.
Right.
When I was feeling down and I heard their story and was like, wow, they're going through, or they did a lot more just to get a smaller goal than I'm doing towards my goal. And so sometimes those people give me like the kick in the ass that I need. Yeah. And I would like to tell that story.
Nice. Are there any, do you ever reach out to people to try and meet them? Or is it just inbound?
So for Maui, for example, I was reaching out to a bunch of Maui-based accounts because I don't know people on Instagram, and I'd put out a story, or I don't know people in Maui. I'd put out a story on Instagram asking if anyone knew anyone there who could introduce me. But yeah, a lot of it was a new area for me, and so it was me just DMing Maui-based accounts, and some of them led to actual meetings and cool experiences. But yeah, every once in a while, like...
Yeah, like, are there any people that you definitely want to have a sit down with? Like, is there a small list of, I got to get these people?
Not really, but there are people that, so Brian Grazer, for example, is someone who I would be interested to sit down and talk with. Because I'm interested in the overlap between his experience and mine. Same with Brandon Stanton from Humans of New York. it's like questions that I would like to ask him, like how I would have for him the same questions that people have of me.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, how often do you keep in touch with these people? Do you ever see them in the streets of New York? Or like, whose stories have inspired you? And also Malcolm Gladwell is an author, is one of my favorite authors. He wrote this book, Outliers, and in it he talks about the 10,000 hours theory, which is if you do spend 10,000 hours on something, you're considered an expert in that field.
Right.
And that's partially an inspiration behind 10,000 hours of my project.
Ah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But he's coming out with a book this September called Talking to Strangers, What We Need to Know About the People We Don't Know, something like that. And one, I want to read it, but two, I want to sit down with him and be like, let's talk about this, because I think I have some things to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I did want to ask, so of the people that you met and friends back home, or even, you know, college acquaintances, whatever, has anybody reached out and said, hey man, like I have an idea, I don't know if it's good, like should I pursue this? Like, do they ever come to you for inspiration to kind of take not a similar journey with what you're doing, but just kind of break away from their normal life, whatever, you know, you want to call it?
Yeah. So some of my college buddies and like their significant others will talk to me if they're not happy in their job.
Right.
Because I'm really one of my friends who's taken a huge leap.
Okay.
Like this. But it's funny, I will say more often I get hit up by people who are like, hey, I have a similar idea to yours of meeting people. Like I just messaged a kid back from Asia today who was like, I want to try to meet new people. What tips do you have for how to handle things in the beginning, or how to talk to people, or how to be safe about it?
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any dangerous stories?
No, not yet.
Good.
Yeah. So there was one.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right. I mean, you're meeting strangers, I guess.
Right. And it's kind of, in my situation, it's like a stranger who oftentimes knows someone I already met. So like you
That's
and I,
true.
for example.
Right.
Like I'm comfortable with you because you're Alex's co-founder, and I know Alex now.
Right.
But there was one time I met a dude in Philly who was opening a brewery in like King of Prussia, the area where I'm from. And
Huge mall there.
yeah, that's right. And we got there, and it was a craft brewery he was opening, and it wasn't built yet, so he just got a beer from a different craft brewery. And we sat down like in this small conference room and split the beer, and he was showing me what was to become the brewery, but at that time it was just a warehouse.
Right.
And it was just literally open warehouse, nothing in it but trenches of dirt and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's where the
Step
tanks
one.
will go or whatever. And in my mind, I was like, this dude could literally just kill me right now.
No one would even know.
Throw me into this trench and like bury me.
Oh my God.
But he didn't. He turned it into a brewery. And
Yeah.
now my sister is having her rehearsal dinner there.
What?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
See, in one of our earlier podcasts about just like reaching out to people, I'm a big advocate of whenever you enter a room or it's like a mix or a social event, just talk to everybody, because you never know how you can help them, or you know if they can help you or something like that. And along this journey, I'm sure there's probably going to be a bunch of people that just come back in your life in some way, you know, whether you help them or they help you or whatever. Yeah, those kind of stories are great, because if you didn't take that, 10 minutes just to talk to somebody, your life would be different. I don't know.
Agreed.
To me, I think that's pretty special, because you're planting seeds that, you see way, way later.
Right. And that's my personal mindset towards it is once you lay that foundation with someone, you're opening the door.
Yeah.
And you can always walk back through that door. Like you and I might not see each other for 10 years, but
right.
we might have an opportunity for each other. And I'm like, I know just the person.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And then
that's called networking, people.
Right. So
yeah,
I definitely agree with that. And I will say, in terms of networking, doing this project and talking to so many people, like when I'm talking to people, I'm very interested in them and I'm actively listening to them. So it's like I can go into project mode. Or if I'm talking with my friends, like I'm not actively listening, but I'm there for the conversation to enjoy it. But when I meet new people, if I'm out at a bar or whatnot, or like even on a date, I can go into project mode and just turn on my listening skills, and I know how to ask questions and how to kind of like pull out the details of their life just because I'm curious about it.
Right.
And so that has served me really well. And now when I talk to people, no matter what level or what profession, I can hold a conversation with them
Right.
just because I've done it so many times before. So like that practice, I think, is huge for anyone.
Mm-hmm. And was any of that from school? Like, did you do any journalism or anything like that? Because sometimes that, helps somebody kind of either get to the next question or I don't know. I never took any, so I don't even know what I'm talking about.
I think it's more so from the tech startup. So I did sales for them.
Yeah.
And we were taught like a good...
Sales sucks, though.
It does.
I did sales for a couple of years, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but it was cold calling people that don't want to talk to you. Mm. How do you even start a conversation with somebody like that? Was it similar or no?
We did cold emailing. So we would just blast out a bunch of emails, and the people who got back and were interested, we would work them into a call.
Right.
But we were taught for those calls, a good call, you're speaking 20% of the time and listening 80% of the time. And my boss would always say we're more powerful with the questions we ask than the answers we give. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is a superpower. If you want to be a good conversationalist, just ask questions and sit back and let other people talk.
Yeah.
Like, being a good conversationalist does not mean talking. It means you should be the one talking the least.
No, that's true. I remember those days where my first couple calls, they were terrible, and then you get feedback from your manager or whatever, and, I'm not cut out to be a salesman, let's put it that way.
Right, and it was more, in my experience, more of a numbers game than actual establishing connections. Yeah. So I didn't fully enjoy it for that aspect.
Right. All right, so we've got about 5-ish minutes left. What's next? So you said you're going back to Philly in a few days?
10 days.
10 more days?
Yeah. So,
all right, so you get a little bit more sun.
Yeah. June 8th.
Well, better sun out here, I think, anyway.
Right. June 8th, I'm going to drive back. And then I'll be in Philly until mid-August. And then I'm going to move up to Hoboken, but New York City.
Hoboken's great, yeah.
Yeah. And who knows after that, but it's also cool. I was talking with a dude today he lives in Canada. Mm-hmm. And he was like, man, it would be cool if you came up to Canada to meet people.
Canada's huge, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, well, maybe my company will sponsor you so that you can come up. And so, we have a call tomorrow morning to see if I were to come up, if he paid for my flight, my hotel, and a daily food budget, would I go up there to meet like 4 people a day? I was like, yeah, of course. Yeah. And there's I'm in a similar situation with a dude from Orlando who makes like social media videos and is really interested in my project. Yeah. So he and his friends all have a company together, and they work out of this house in Orlando, and they want to do the same thing, fly me down to meet with them. And so it's cool that that's starting to open up, because I kind of thought that might be a possibility. And people would always say, well, you're going to get to the point someday where people are flying you out to meet with them. And hopefully we're there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah. And then you have a place to stay. You don't have to worry about anything, and just keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But to expand upon the question, so that will happen this summer, and then hopefully I'll get abroad at some point. Yeah. And it's just continuing to do the project, hopefully getting some long-term partnerships, and continuing to grow. So that article that I wrote on how to meet 12 new people, I just called it 12 Friend Challenge as a way to keep track of it on Instagram. Mm-hmm. I want to continue to expand that. Right. In a very nonchalant way. I'm not really pushing anyone to do it, but I'm putting it out there for people. If it's something they're interested in, here's a resource. Right. And it'll be cool at the end of this year to see who did it, what they took away from it. Yeah. How we can turn that into a better article for next year. It's more realistic for people to go out and do. And I think that is something that I want to be a part of, is reversing that trend of people not talking to each other face to face. Especially nowadays, yeah. Yeah, and I think phones and whatever, and yeah. And I've seen with my project to go from one person without anyone knowing my project to now having over 20,000 people following along with it. Mm-hmm. And having met 2,600 people, I think the same could be done with that type of challenge. Yeah. And then long term, well, more near term, I think it'd be cool to start speaking about the project, and long term teaching it in a university setting. Yeah, I was going to say, did your university reach back out and say, hey, we caught wind of what you're doing. Do you want to talk? Not yet. That'll be coming. Yeah, it'll be coming someday. Yeah. But I see myself 10 years from now having a wife and kids, living in Philly, and teaching at Penn, Drexel, or Temple. Mm-hmm. I really want to teach a freshman seminar called Human Interaction, and just have 50 students pair off into 25 pairs, and be like, your class period today is just you speaking with each other and learning about each other's lives. Yeah. And then at the end of it, you'll write what you learned about each other in a story form, kind of like I did.
Right.
And just build those skills of hearing someone else's story, telling your own, creating bonds that can stay with you beyond college, and just expanding your perspective. So,
that's going to be in huge demand.
Right.
That's amazing.
I want to put that into a college setting.
All right. Very cool. So where can I know you said in the beginning, but just in case you missed it, where can everybody follow this journey at?
Sure. The best way is Instagram. If they have it, my Instagram handle is at Robs10kfriends. I also post to Facebook and Twitter. Twitter is just a link back to Instagram, so it's kind of redundant. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook. Instagram is the main platform that I'm on and that I message people. And yeah, if people hear this and they want to meet with me, definitely send me a message, even if we're not in the same area.
Right.
I would love to hear from people and like set up a possibility for us to meet in the future.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It was a good conversation. I'm sure we're going to have, a little conversation after this too. But sure. Guys, thanks for checking out The Break again. We'll see you next Monday.